Hi everyone, this is Niladri and welcome to Project Management Professional Training Session 20. So in session 20, we are going to talk about procurement management. Now, procurement management is one of the topics which is very subjective, and probably most of us in the project management space have not have a direct kind of experience with the procurement. And the reason being that if you work in a large company or enterprise company, you will always see that there will be a separate, specific, department for procurement, and they will handle, all the procurement stuff for you. And probably as a project manager, you just have to coordinate and collaborate with them, right? So procurement is one of the topics why it is called the hardest in the PMP is because many of us cannot visualize that correctly because we have never done that really. We have never written a contract, to be very honest. Um, we just probably know the overall picture, right? But when you expect the questions of procurement in PMP exam, uh, they are very specific and they will assume that as a project manager or as a PMP certified project manager, you are having a pretty good understanding of the different components or the elements in the procurement management. So I would like to take you through the procurement. Just a disclaimer in the beginning, it may be a little bit boring, right? Because most of the talks that we are going to do in the procurement will revolve around agreement and contracts and so on and so forth. And these talks are never like too exciting, right? They're always like, something like very, very, what do you say, dry kind of talk, goes on. But focus well, try to absorb the basics well. And if you can do that, then at least if not all, then couple of the questions of the procurement in the exam will be easy for you. The reason I'm trying to say is that do not try to attempt a very tough procurement question on the exam because it will kill your time. In exam, you don't have all the time in the world, right? You probably have got 1 minute, few seconds for each question. But if you say that 5 questions are coming up in the exam from the procurement space, then probably out of 5, if you can do 2 or 3, great. 2 or 3, if you cannot do, that's all right, because that's how the exam has been designed, that you cannot do all of them, right? But do not be blank on this topic because this topic is not that difficult as well. And as we go through, you will know that if you go through this topic once, twice, or thrice, you will kind of know the nuances. And again, we will spend some time in doing some questions on the procurement management. So you're pretty much well versed on the topic. So in procurement management, we are going to talk about the basics first, the fundamentals. And then I will take you through the contracts. Okay. And once we have taken a deep dive into the 3 or probably a little bit more than kind of contracts, then we will see that, yeah, this is how the procurement contract model works. We will have one more session on the procurement where I will take you through a little bit extra on this and probably a few more questions on this, and you will be pretty much confident on the topic. So just a quick recap of what we have done so far. So if you look into this chart, we have been talking about this from the day one, right? Initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and control and closing. Now, let me just quickly pull up annotation here. Give me 1 second. And okay, so we have not done the integration yet. I have kept it for the end. Once we have done with all the other knowledge areas, then I will get back into integration. So we have definitely spent a lot of time into scope and schedule and cost, which is the triple constraints. We have gone through the quality aspects, quality assurance and quality control, both of them. Of course, we have seen the resources piece, the human factor part of it. Communication, we have seen risk management, we have taken a deep dive on that. Stakeholders, we have done in the beginning itself. So procurement is one of the, I will say, the last knowledge areas which we are going to complete, and then we will be getting into integration. It will be easy for you to understand integration if we know all the other knowledge areas well. It's just a mixing of all the knowledge areas which cuts across all the 5 process groups. Okay, let me take off the annotation here and let's move forward. So Procurement basics. In procurement, you will always find there are multiple times you will find the mention of this terms called buyer and seller. Okay, so what is a buyer and a seller? So whenever we are talking about procurement, it means that we are buying something, right? So procure in literal English means to buy something, right? It can be the purchase of goods, let's say hardware, or it can be the purchase of services as well. So let us say that from the day one CIS, if we are purchasing the hardware from Cisco to do our infrastructure solutions for the sites, then we are doing a procurement of the goods. Again, we are going to, let's say, a LVC, and we are saying, okay, we are going to purchase your services to get the job done, be it a day one, day two, or LCR or anything, then that will be a purchase of the services. We are making sure that we get the resources on the ground to get the job done. So who is the buyer here? Of course, us, right? So we will be the buyer, and the seller is Cisco or the LVC who is selling us either the hardware or the services. Now that's one way of seeing things. You will also see a certain kind of a way where the buyer and the seller is not always an external entity. I mean, in PMP language, I will say 99% of the time, the question will be targeted on a very conventional buyer and seller. So the buyer will be from a separate company and the seller will be also from a separate company, right? To an external entity, you're going and you are trying to purchase something, be a good or be it a service. But sometimes it might happen that you might want to probably get something within the company itself, right? There are companies which does that. Let's say, for instance, let's say Boeing, right? So Boeing will be manufacturing the jet engines, right? Not exactly like manufacturing, but getting it from some companies, let's say Pratt and Whitney or GE, something. Now, or Rolls Royce. Now these companies also will be manufacturing the engines for the jet engines. Now Boeing will be having the different like verticals, let's say a commercial and then a defense. Now inside the Boeing company, there may be certain kind of agreements happening between the different orgs. I'll come to that in detail. Okay. So the next point is about contract versus agreement. Now this also is a very very widely used term in the exam. So be very careful that you know these terms very very well. So contract is something which is a legal relation between two entities or more than that. So contract is always where it's a legal document. Okay. When you are purchasing goods from Cisco or services from LVC, you definitely will be signing off a contract. Maybe you are not signing, maybe as a project manager, you are not signing, but somebody, that procurement team in your company, will be creating a master contract or agreement, which we call MSA, and then they will sign it off. That will be having a detailed legal form of a document about XYZ between the two companies, trade compliance stuff, the alliance, local rules, laws, which all will be verified and scrutinized by the legal team, and then both the parties sign off on that. So why it is a kind of a contract done? Because money is there. So when you involve like money, dollars, into a purchase of good or service, you definitely would like to have some confidence into that, right? Like the person is giving you what you're paying for, right? And what you agreed in the beginning, the SLAs are met, are respected. And if they are not met or respected, then you can go to a court. You can actually use that contract as a legal document to sue the company that, okay, we have paid X amount of dollars, but we have not got what we wanted. We wanted the hardware or the service X, but we got a hardware or the service Y. Okay, so contract is a typical hard-coded legal document. And if you have seen that, great. If you have not seen that, try to go through any of the MSAs or the master service agreements that we have got with the different vendors, and you will get to have a kind of the understanding at a high level how the contracts look. Trust me, they will not be in a very simple language. They will be in a legal, like a typical legal wordings will be used. They will be very dry, but that's how the contracts look like. They're very carefully thoughtfully like written by legal experts. Okay. Now, agreement. So let's go back to the discussion which we are having. Let's say Boeing as a company, right, is trying to use certain things within different orgs in the company. Or let's say coming to Amazon, let's say during the time of RTO, what we did, we were using or sharing the resources, right, from different teams. So when the RTO came up as one of the prime strategic move that we have to get it done at a tactical level on the ground level for every global site in different kind of layers, let's say tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, tier 4 kind of sites, then the engineering org and the delivery org pulled in the resources from many areas, from wherever they could like pull in, right? Be it a TPM in an unfabric program was pulled into RTO, be it an engineer into day one or pop project or day two was pulled into RTO, right? So that was the agreement between the leaders of different orgs that okay, in order to get this work done at a tactical level, which is now one of the key strategy initiative of the company, which is coming straight from top to bottom, we have to get this done. And for that we are not signing off any contract. We don't have to sign a contract is a legal thing which we sign off with an external entity. But for internal org purpose, whatever we do, that we agree on that. Now, we might say that did we agree on a memo or something or on an email or something? Not necessarily. Okay, the leaders of the different org, they can sit together in one room or in one conference call. They may go through the situation. They may see how much of, let's say, manpower we need versus how much we have, and how much can be pulled from other resources or teams. And the leaders of those teams are like pretty much confident, or they have to deprioritize their projects to let you use their resources, right? And that's how it works is. So it's more about the document or the communication that outline the internal and external relationship and their intentions. Now, a very common question in the exam is it will keep on asking you project charter, planning documents, are they agreement or contract? You have to think through them. Just because somebody has signed on a document, it's not a contract. So project charter, we all know it's being signed off, right? Signed off by the project manager and also the project and also the sponsor of the project, right? But is that a legal document? No, it is not. Project charter is an agreement. It is not a legal document. So let's say when I was working in IBM and I was working for an external client, which was Royal Bank of Scotland, then at the top level between RBS, Royal Bank of Scotland, and IBM, there was a kind of a contract being signed off. I mean, I have not seen that contract. That's done at a very high level, but that contract very clearly says that this program has to be completed with this amount of cost within next 3 years. The time bounding was given, and the amount of the dollar was given, and the people at the high level who are the key stakeholders, uh, which may be a group of people from IBM and from RBS, they have signed off the contract. And that's a legal document which has been scrutinized and verified and vetted by the legal team of both the companies. But when you're writing a project charter, it's more like the contract has been signed off. Now, from the portfolio management level, uh, the scope of the contract is pushed down to the program level. And then it's the job of the program manager to write a project charter, which will be having the high level scope, the high level risk, the major milestones, a few key stakeholder names, assumptions, constraints, so on and so forth, right? And then it will be signed off by the assigned project manager whose name is given in the charter, and also by the project sponsor. In this case, the sponsor person is from Royal Bank of Scotland, right? But it is not a legal document. So project charter cannot be taken to a court of law. Okay. Similarly, all the project planning documents. So whatever planning you are doing, like we are having a very big fat layer of planning in a waterfall project, right? We believe deeply that if we fail to plan, then we plan to fail. So basically we have to spend a very good amount of time in planning of a program that will be going through scope, time, cost, and quality, and procurement, and so on. And then ultimately the outcome will be a planning document, project plan document, right? But will that be a legal document or a contract. No, that's not. So your charter, your planning documents, they all are agreements. Okay. So this should be super clear with you, because in the exam, you will find these terms in the question a lot: buyer, seller, contract, and agreement. Okay. All right, let's move forward. Now, since we are speaking about contract, let's use this session to go through all the kind of contracts that we have got. Okay. So contract types. So at a high level, we have got only three kind of contracts: fixed price, cost reimbursable, and the last one is time and material. Now, why I'm telling at a high level, because once we start doing a deep dive, you will see that each of these contracts, especially the first two, they will be having a branch out of multiple like flavors of the contract. Okay. Um, so let's see what these contracts are, and at which situation should we use what kind of contract. So starting with fixed price. Fixed price, as the name says, okay, fixed price means the price is fixed. It can be told as a lump sum contract. Okay. Now, why are we saying that it's a lump sum contract? Because maybe in the beginning of the project, you are not super sure what the cost is going to be at the end of the project. Let's say you are engaged into a data center build program, which is going to last for 2 years. And you're signing off that contract fixed price, which means that you are telling the seller, like, I'm going to pay X amount of dollars for this entire program. Okay. And the dollar value is there in the contract, and that's it. We are not going to change the dollar value. Okay. That's called a lump sum. Okay. So both the seller and the buyer, they agree on a fixed price for the entire project. Now, it's definitely a risk for the seller. Why? Because when you're looking into a lump sum kind of the price, it may always happen, um, or there is always a chance that within this next 2 years or in the future, the prices of hardware may increase. There may be there may be inflation charge. The prices of the freighting, shipment, or airfare, anything. I mean, all the things, or the fuel price, they all may increase, and that may land up higher cost to the seller. So the seller has to factor in, but do we really know what's going to happen in the future? Let's say a war breaks out. It will immediately raise the cost of the fuel, right? And when the cost of the fuel is high, your transportation cost will be high. And if the seller has signed up the contract, I'm going to send the material to your doorstep within this X amount of dollars, even with a contingency plan of, let's say, 30%, that also will be difficult to meet up if there is a major problem there. Okay. So in a lump sum kind of a contract, it's always a high level of risk. Okay. And the buyer is always in the least risk category. Okay. Since the price the seller agreed is fixed. So no wonder, let's say if I want to purchase a hardware from Cisco, I probably will go for a fixed kind of contract, right? If I'm the buyer, I'm definitely going for a fixed price in a contract, because it puts me into a safety net. I know that what will be my capex charges, and I don't really have to bother about inflation or any calamity, or maybe, let's say, in this case, the dearth of the chips in the networking material, right? So those kind of things I don't have to worry at all. I mean, do what may, but you have to deliver me the product at that price, and you have agreed on that. Now, you may also think, then why the seller has agreed to sign this kind of contract? Because ultimately, end of the day, it's a kind of the risk for the seller, right? So the seller would have agreed to that for multiple reasons. One of the reason is that, okay, one major reason, what I can say here is that the seller may be looking into long-term benefits for the company. Okay, the seller might be seeing that, all right, this company's name is called Amazon, or let's say Google or something. Now this company will be a long-term buyer for us, because any which ways, if they are going to get infrastructure hardware from us, we can always get them into purchasing more of them, because this kind of the programs will never end. And also there is a thing called the life cycle replacement of the products, which is called LCR. So that tread mill will continue. That cost of the license, cost of the replacement of the hardware, that all will continue. And the seller thinks in a very long term gain, that all right, maybe one program I may not gain all the money, but what about for the next 10 years, or at least the next 5 years, till the time that the technology is still there, I can definitely sell my hardware in the current pace. And the quality, I mean, the quantity matters here, the volume matters. So looking at the volume, I can make the money. The margin might be not be great in the beginning, but in the overall game, I can gain the money, or I can make the benefit. And also the brand image matters. Okay, whenever a big company goes to a seller, which is a Fortune 500 company, the big A star kind of companies, the sellers are more than willing to keep them into their bracket, because they can show to other people that, hey, these top companies are our clients, right? If you remember, if you go to any consultant in the market, I mean, if you have ever been into a situation where you are trying to purchase some service from a consultant or a LVC, if you have done that on your own, you will always see the consultant will actually show you in one of their PowerPoint slides that these are our clients. So that they are building the brand image actually. All the, they will tell you a statement like, like 50 of the 100 Fortune 500 companies are in our bracket of clients. So in that way, they want to increase their brand value, and the confidence of the future buyers are increased. So that's one reason why a seller would like to get into a fixed price contract, because it doesn't make too much sense for the seller, right? In the initial in a go, but it makes a lot of sense when you look into these kind of factors: long term benefit, raising the brand image of the company, and so on and so forth. The other part is that the seller may try to cut the scope to deliver the projects on time and within budget. Okay, that also can be done. And if the project is finished on time with the desired quality, the project is over for that contract. Okay, but I mean, that's a good way. But the bad part is that if the project is delayed and there are overrun of cost, then the seller will absorb all the extra cost. Basically, the seller has to incur losses, and the seller should be prepared to incur some loss. Okay, so fixed price contract is good when the seller also has got an idea that things will really not change too much in the future. They have predicted well. And secondly, when the seller is looking to get certain companies into their bracket to increase their brand image. And the third is that when they're looking for a long-term gain, because it's not just about one program for 3 years, right? Whenever you're purchasing, let's say from Cisco, you're purchasing networking hardware, you are getting into the cycle of replacement of products, purchasing their license, and so on and so forth. So all those extra bells and whistles are added to your product year after year, and that's the way the seller thinks it's all right, they can still make the business. Okay, so that's kind of about the fixed price contract. It is very nice for the buyer and risky for the seller. Now, types of fixed price contract. Now this is where you might feel a little bit uncomfortable, because all the while we knew that okay, there are only three kind of contracts. So Niladri so far told you only three type of contracts and it's easy, right? But now he's showing a slide with loads of, like, I see at least three more types of contracts under fixed price. So don't worry, like I said, it will not come to you at one go. This knowledge of contracts will not definitely come to you at one go, because you do not deal with contracts. In fact, very few project managers actually deal with contracts, that too in smaller companies. In large companies, big companies, it's always a separate procurement team, because they need legal counterpart on through which they handle the contract, right? So it is something of that knowledge which is not used in your daily life. It will take time to absorb, but trust me, it's not that difficult as well. So in fixed price contract, we have got three flavors. So remember the first thing, fixed price is lump sum, right? Now, with that thinking, now let's talk about this three kind of the flavors which normally happens in fixed price. First one is fixed price incentive fee, FPIF. Now this one is says that although the price is fixed, the seller is offered a performance based incentive. Okay, a carrot in front of them. The incentive can be dependent upon one or more project metrics such as cost or time. So they are telling that, okay, if you can really complete this in a program within this cost or within this time or ahead of the time, then definitely we are going to give you some extra money. Okay, so to make sure the seller is motivated, they can do the job in lesser time or lesser money than the one which is in the actual contract. A fixed price award fee. This is generally used when you are outsourcing like vendors. Okay, if the performance of the seller exceed expectations, an additional amount will be paid to the seller. Let's say 20% of the total price. Now that's a very good incentive for a external vendor. Let's say in this case, you are asking, let's say, certain quantity of switch line cards to Cisco. Okay, not necessary that Cisco is going to manufacture and give it to you. Cisco will definitely manufacture, but maybe Cisco will outsource that. It will tell, okay, certain company X in some corner of the globe will do that. And how they will make it happen very quickly, they will put in a contract like, okay, it's a fixed price, but award fee. So they will tell you guys, like you means here to us, Cisco will give a lead time of, let's say, 10 weeks. Okay. But on the other hand, they will talk with their outsourcing guys and they will tell them, if you can like give it to us within 6 weeks of time or 7 weeks of time, you are going to get some award, some fees are there, some extra money will be given to you. And with that, what they benefit is that they are going to give that or deliver that hardware to us ahead of time. Two things happen here. Once they do that, they gain the confidence with the client to ensure the client signs off the upcoming contracts as well, to get more business from the client. That's number one. Number two is that if they complete the scope ahead of the time, then they are out of the risk zone, because fixed price contract, the risk is more when the time is going to the right hand side, because your inflation rate, your unpredictability of the market, that all happens when you're moving forward with time. Okay, if you can complete things ahead of the time, ahead of the stipulated like period in the contract, it's a boon for you. So fixed price award fee is generally used by the original seller to their subcontractors or to their outsourced partners. And the last one is fixed price economic price adjustment, FPEPA. Now this is something where something like a little bit floating. It's not exactly a fixed price. The fixed price can be redetermined depending on the market pricing rate. Now, this is something which is not used too much. I mean, the buyer will not agree, because when the buyer comes for a fixed price, they mean a fixed price. They don't want to get into a fixed price and floating as well. So rarely used, but yes, this is also kind of a fixed price contract where the price is fixed, but it tells you that the price can be recalibrated or redetermined depending upon the market pricing rate. Okay. So that's all about the fixed price contract. Now the next one, let's talk about cost reimbursable contract. Now this contract, the main keyword in the cost reimbursable contract is project scope is uncertain. So when the project scope is uncertain or the project is is at high risk, then these kind of contract is being used. Okay, so the buyer will pay all the cost, which means the buyer will bear all the risk. Okay, but here, since the scope is uncertain, you cannot go for a fixed price, right? Because you are telling I may need this amount of the material or service, and you're not sure. You're like, the project has been divided into 2 3 phases. We may not go for the third phase because we are still waiting for an approval from the local government body uh, to give us the sign off to maybe rise the building to from 10th to 13th floor. um, so we have got the land approval and the building height till the 10th floor done by the local bodies, but we have not got it done till the 13th floor or 14th floor. So you are not sure about the scope. So how can you sign off a fixed price contract, right? So that's the time you will be using a cost reimbursable contract. So here the project scope is uncertain, or the project itself is at a high risk. I mean, you're not sure, but the project will be completely terminated after the phase 2, and the phase 3 will not be even be taken care of, right? So here the buyer will pay all the cost, and the buyer will bear all the risk. Now, that is something against the buyer. So if I am a buyer, I probably will never go for a cost reimbursable contract, right? Um, Now, let's see how it works out. The seller will work for a fixed time period and will raise the bill after finishing the work. Okay, and that fee that represents the profits for the contract. Okay, and that fee may be dependent on selected performance of the project or some KPIs or metrics on the project, let's say cost, time, etc. Right? Now, what is the main drawback? The major drawback of this type of contract is that the seller can raise an unlimited or unknown amount which the buyer is compelled to pay. Okay, so there is always a chance for the buyer to pay more because you already have signed off a cost reimbursable contract, and the seller can raise a very high bill to you. So the seller can always say that the cost of the manpower has increased or cost of the hardware has increased, and the bill which you thought in the beginning was like $100 can be shared with you as $500, and you cannot say no to that because you already had signed a legal contract and it's a cost reimbursable. Whatever the cost is bared by the seller, with some kind of like profit, the seller can ask for that charge to you, and you have to pay that charge. Okay, so there is a kind of uncertainty there, unknown amount for unlimited time, all that things comes into picture. Okay, these kind of contracts are generally not used by buyers. If not, they are not finding a suitable seller. So seller, they are not finding too many sellers in the market who can provide that kind of a element to them, especially let's say a very niche kind of a program, let's say space research. Okay, in that probably you need certain kind of instruments which are only being manufactured by very key or very rare kind of or very less not like number of companies in the world. Now there you have to bow down to the kind of the contract that seller has got, because you don't have any much competition there. You don't have too many players there to which you can go and say that, okay, I would like to get this product at this price, and you can dominate a bit. You cannot do that because the players itself to sell that product is very very less or minimum, and you need that product at right time at your table to get the job done. So rare one, but can be used, and when the project scope is uncertain. Now again, in cost reimbursable also, we have got 4 kinds of flavors. Again, don't try to remember all the flavors of fixed price and cost reimbursable at one shot. Like I said, it will take some time, but at least know the basics well. And then the more questions you practice, you will get the flavor well. Okay. So the first one of the flavor of the cost reimbursable contract is cost plus fee or cost plus percentage of cost, which means that the seller will get the total cost they incurred during the project plus a percentage of the fee over the cost. Okay, so total cost, of course, they are going to get which they incurred, which they have gone through in the project, that they will invoice the buyer. Apart from that, they will also get a percentage of the fee of the overall cost, like 5% or 10%. So it's more money for them. Okay. This all happens when the seller is in a dominating position to the buyer because the services are rare in the market. Okay. Cost plus fixed fee. The seller is paid a fixed amount that is agreed upon before the work commences. The cost incurred on the project is reimbursed on top of this, regardless of project performance. That's a very risky contract for the buyer because regardless of the project performance, the seller is going to get a fixed amount that is agreed upon even before the work is going to commence. Okay, so the seller is going to get, let's say, $100, a fixed price. Apart from that, they're also going to get the price which they incurred on the program, regardless of your program is doing well, red, amber, green, whatever. Okay, cost plus the incentive fee. Now, this is something which is uh, performance-based incentive fee. Now that is being paid to the seller over and above the actual cost they have incurred on the project. Okay. Now, incentive means what? It's a motivating factor for the seller to meet or to exceed the project's performance metrics. Now, again, like I said, cost or time. If they complete prior to time, then they get some kind of bonus money. Now, CPIF is not a bad idea. It's a good one to motivate the seller to give you more in less time. But again, like I said, since it is also having the little bit domination of the seller, that you have to pay the price of the project plus whatever the money they are going to get for the performance factor. This is only to be used when the project scope is not certain in the beginning. Okay, because you cannot get into a fixed price. So remember, you are always going to get into a cost reimbursable. Always have to think about that path when you cannot do a fixed price. Fixed price is always the de facto choice of the buyer. Okay, but fixed price you cannot do always because you do not know. If you do not know even the scope of the program, how can you do a fixed price, right? And the last one is cost plus award fee. Here the seller will be getting a bonus amount plus the actual cost incurred on the projects. And this type of contract is very similar to a CPIF. So CPIF is more about the incentive when you're going to perform, like when the seller is going to perform ahead of the game, okay, in any of the factors or any of the KPIs. Bonus is also like actual cost. So the bonus is also like something where they have promised in the beginning, like you have to pay us $100, but you have to pay us $150 if we give you this thing ahead of the time. Okay, so they are very similar. I mean, the bonus fee is something which little bit can vary upon the matrix, but award fee is something which is constant. You are any which was going to get an award if you hit any of the metrics. Okay, and now time and material. Now, that is also one of the contracts, and this is actually called a unit price or basically an hourly rate kind of a contract. Okay, mainly used for companies which are using contractors or to share the contingent worker for a company. Sometimes we do need a kind of a contract worker in the company. Why? Because we know that once the program is over, we may not need that worker any longer. We do not want a permanent person there because we don't have any work to give to the person after, let's say, 2 years. So we go for a contract and we just go with the flow. If things go all right, we renew the contract. If things don't go all right, we do not renew the contract, right? So that's called a unit price or an hourly rate. Now, some companies, they go for a monthly contract. Some companies, they go for a weekly contract. Some go for an hourly rate contract. Okay. Now, time material, when you get the question in the exam, it is more like a mixture of the elements of fixed price and cost reimbursable. So if the seller is spending 1,000 hours on a project at $120 an hour, okay, the seller will be paid, of course, 120 into 1,000, 120,000 by the buyer. Okay, so depends how many hours the seller is going to spend on the program. So seller will say, okay, if it's a resource, a service, probably 5 days a week. Then five days a week is 5 into 8, which is 40, and 40 into 4 weeks, which is 160 hours. And then per hour they're going to charge you. So let's say you need the person for like 10 months, then 160 into 10 is 1600 hours, and then you have to pay the person like, let's say, $100 per hour, so 1600 into 100, that is the amount you have to sign off in the beginning. You may not be paying that resource that amount of money in the beginning itself, but your purchase order will be cut so that it's kind of a positive direction, and every month you get a kind of a invoice that, okay, click on this to submit, and to submit that, and the seller is going to get the money and the resource will be paid off the money. Okay, but the initial purchase order has to be approved by the finance department and the operations team of the buyer's company. Okay. Now, this type of contract is common for freelancers, basically contract workers or contingent workers. And the main plus point of the time and the material contract is the seller will be making money for every hour spent on the project. That's better for them, right? I mean, they will be counting every hour, and the more the project goes, the merrier they are, because they are going to incur the charges per hour spent on the program. If you ask them that I would like your person to work even in the weekends, then they will charge you. Sometimes they may put a clause in the contract that there is a standard charge, and to work in the weekend, it's a double charge. Okay, so like that, they make the money in the form of time and material contract. It's a common contract which is basically used for contingent workers. Okay, so remember like this. You don't have to remember all the flavors of the contract right now, but remember like this. There are three contracts majorly used. First of all, a contract is a legal document. Now, three contracts are your fixed price, where the buyer is at the advantage. Then you have got cost reimbursable, is used when the project scope is uncertain. And finally, time and material, where the contract is based on hourly unit charges. Okay, so let's do a quick wrap up of the session now. A couple of things, quick points. I'm not going to deal with all the flavors of the contract in the wrap up, just the top key points. Fixed price contracts are also known as lump sum contracts, which here the seller is at risk and the buyer is at the gain. Cost reimbursable contract is used when project scope is uncertain or when the project is at high risk. Okay, and finally, time and material is also known as the unit price or hourly rate contracts, typically used for contingent workers. So that's kind of the overview of the contracts we had. But I'm sure you might be having many questions in your mind now, right? Because it's a very like dry subject. Okay, so what we will do is that we'll spend one more session on this to go through some numerical, some common questions that's being asked in the exam, and in that way you will be having more confidence into this topic. So procurement is always a difficult one. In the scale of 1 to 10, I will say it's like 8 to 8.5. It's pretty difficult, and the difficult the key knowledge area which comes up in the difficulty scale of 9, I will say that is integration management. Okay, but thankfully you do not get many questions on the procurement or in the integration management. Okay, thankfully you don't get, but whatever you get, I would not like to see you complete blank on the questions. That will lead to a lot of loss of marks. Okay, so if you get, let's say, procurement 5 questions in the exam, I will expect you to at least crack 3 of them, and probably two you cannot crack because things will be lengthy, you will be having some limited time in the exam, and so on. The good point of the PMP, at least till today, is that there is no negative marking in the exam. So there is no no shying away from trying something in a short time to find out. But few of the procurement questions are really simple. Okay, where they will ask you which of these is a legal document, or they will give you a use case like this is going to happen between buyer and seller. In the use case of this, which contract you think is the most suitable one? All right, with that, we came to the end of the training session of lesson 20. I hope you liked it and enjoyed it. Thanks for watching. I wish you all a great day and a great time. Cheers.